My parents ditched my wedding for my brother's trip, so I shared photos without them, and silently shattered the image they worked years to build. I never thought my parents would choose my brother's vacation over my wedding day, but sometimes the people who should love you most are the ones who hurt you deepest. My name is Madeline Carter, and I'm 29 years old. I work as a high-end wedding photographer, which means I've seen every kind of family drama you can imagine play out on what's supposed to be the happiest day of people's lives. I've watched mothers cry over seating arrangements, fathers refuse to walk daughters down the aisle, and siblings start screaming matches during reception speeches. But I never thought I'd become the bride whose own parents chose not to show up. I'd been planning my wedding to David for 8 months. We'd been together for 4 years, and he proposed on Christmas morning in my childhood living room, right in front of my parents and my older brother Marcus. Everyone seemed thrilled. My mother, Eleanor, actually cried happy tears, and my father, Richard, shook David's hand and said he couldn't be prouder to welcome him to the family. That was December. By the time March rolled around, something had shifted. The first sign should have been how differently my parents treated my wedding planning compared to Marcus's life events. When my brother got his promotion at the engineering firm last year, Dad threw him a celebration dinner and invited half the neighborhood. When Marcus and his wife Jenny bought their house, Mom spent weeks helping them decorate and insisted on posting photos all over Facebook with captions like "so proud of my successful son." But when I showed them the beautiful venue I'd booked, Dad just nodded and asked about the cost. When I found my dream dress, Mom said it was lovely in the same tone she'd used to compliment a stranger's haircut. Every conversation about the wedding felt like I was bothering them with unnecessary details. I tried to push down the feeling that something was wrong. Maybe they were just stressed about retirement finances. Maybe they were worried about losing their little girl. Maybe I was being too sensitive, reading into things that weren't really there. Then, 3 weeks before my wedding day, they destroyed that possibility entirely. I was at their house for our usual Sunday dinner when Dad cleared his throat in that formal way that meant he had an announcement. "Madeline, honey, your mother and I need to talk to you about something important." My heart skipped. For a wild moment, I thought maybe they were planning some wonderful surprise for the wedding. Maybe they'd been acting distant because they were secretly organizing something special. "What is it?" I asked, setting down my fork. Mom and Dad exchanged a look that I would later recognize as guilt mixed with determination. "Well," Mom began, "Marcus and Jenny have been planning this amazing European vacation and they've invited us to come along." "That sounds wonderful," I said, genuinely happy for them. "When are you going?" The silence that followed was deafening. "The thing is," Dad continued, his voice getting quieter, "the dates they got the best deal on, well, they conflict with your wedding." I blinked, certain I'd misheard. "What do you mean, conflict?" "The trip is scheduled for the same week as your wedding," Mom said, not quite meeting my eyes. "We'd be flying out 2 days before and not getting back until 3 days after." The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of the dining table, trying to process what they were telling me. "You're saying you won't be at my wedding?" "Now, sweetheart, don't get upset," Dad said quickly. "Weddings can be rescheduled. This travel package is a once-in-a-lifetime deal, and Marcus really wants us there with them. You know how hard he's been working lately." I stared at them in complete shock. "You want me to reschedule my wedding so you can go on vacation with Marcus?" "It's not just any vacation," Mom protested. "It's a family trip. Marcus specifically planned it so we could all spend time together, and you know how rare it is for him to take time off work. But it's my wedding day, and it'll still be your wedding day whenever you have it," Dad said, as if this was perfectly reasonable. "The important thing is that you're marrying David, not the specific date on the calendar." I felt like I was in some kind of alternate reality. "Dad, we sent out invitations 3 months ago. We have deposits on everything. Our friends have booked flights and hotels. David's family is coming from across the country. You can't be serious." "Marcus already booked the flights," Mom said quietly. "And the hotel reservations are non-refundable." That's when it clicked. Wait. When did Marcus book this trip? Another exchange of guilty looks. "When did he book it?" I repeated, my voice getting sharper. "About a month ago," Dad admitted. A month ago. A full month after they'd received our wedding invitations. A month after the date had been set in stone, Marcus had deliberately planned a vacation that would conflict with my wedding, and my parents had agreed to it. "He knew about my wedding date," I said, "and it wasn't a question." "Of course he knew," Mom said. But honey, you have to understand. Marcus doesn't get opportunities like this very often. His job is so demanding, and Jenny's been wanting to go to Europe for years. When they found this deal and asked us to come, we just couldn't say no. But you could say no to my wedding. That's not fair, Madeline. We're not saying no to your wedding. We're just asking you to be flexible with the timing. I stood up from the table, my legs shaky. I need to go home and think about this. Sweetheart, please don't be dramatic, Dad said. This is a family matter, and family members make sacrifices for each other. Right, I said. Family members make sacrifices. I'll remember that. I drove home in a daze, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. When I walked into the apartment I shared with David, he took one look at my face and knew something was catastrophically wrong. What happened? He asked, immediately pulling me into his arms. I told him everything. As the words came out, they sounded even more insane than they had felt in the moment. My parents were choosing a vacation with my brother over my wedding day. They expected me to just move the entire event because it was inconvenient for their travel plans. David was quiet for a long time after I finished talking. Finally he said, "Baby, I'm so sorry, this is completely insane. What do we do?" I asked. "Do we reschedule? I mean, technically we could, but no." His voice was firm. "Absolutely not. We are not rescheduling our wedding because your parents decided a vacation was more important than their daughter's wedding day. But they won't be there. Then they won't be there. Madeline, listen to me. If we reschedule for this, what message does that send? That your brother's wants come before your needs? That your parents can manipulate you into changing major life events on a whim? That your wedding day isn't actually important?" He was right, but the thought of getting married without my parents there made me feel sick. Over the next few days, I tried calling them separately, hoping maybe I could reason with one of them. The conversations were heartbreaking. "Mom, please," I said during a tearful phone call. "It's my wedding day. I need you there. I know it's hard, sweetheart, but you're being a little selfish here. This trip means so much to Marcus and Jenny, and they specifically planned it so we could be included. How would it look if we backed out now? How does it look that you're missing your daughter's wedding? That's different. Your wedding is about you and David making a commitment to each other. You don't need us there for that to be meaningful." But Marcus needed them there for his vacation to be meaningful, apparently. My call with Dad was even worse. "Daddy," I said, using the name I hadn't called him since childhood, "I'm begging you. Please don't do this. Please don't miss my wedding. Madeline, you're putting me in an impossible position here. Your brother has been looking forward to this trip for months. We already committed to going. But you committed to being at my wedding first. The date's been set since last year. Look, I know you're disappointed, but sometimes life doesn't work out exactly how we plan. You're a grown woman now. You should understand that adults have to make difficult choices sometimes. What about the choice to be there for your daughter on the most important day of her life? Don't be so dramatic, it's one day. You'll have plenty of other important days." That night, David found me crying in our bedroom. "They're really not going to change their minds, are they?" he asked gently. I shook my head, unable to speak through the tears. "Okay," he said, pulling me close. "Then we have a decision to make. Do we postpone the wedding and give in to this manipulation, or do we go ahead and get married without them? I can't imagine my wedding day without my parents there. I can't imagine starting our marriage by teaching your family that they can control us whenever they want." He was right again, but that didn't make it hurt any less. 2 weeks before the wedding, I made one final attempt. I called Marcus directly. "Hey sis," he answered cheerfully. "What's up?" "Marcus, I need to ask you something and I need you to be honest with me." "Sure, shoot." "When you booked your Europe trip, did you know it was the same week as my wedding?" A pause. "Well, yeah, I knew the dates. And you booked it anyway?" "Look, Madeline, I know you're upset about Mom and Dad coming with us, but you have to understand, this deal was too good to pass up. We got flights for half price, and the hotel package was incredible. Opportunities like this don't come along often. But it's my wedding, Marcus. And it'll be a great wedding whenever you have it. Come on, you're being a little melodramatic here. It's not like you're dying. You're just getting married. You can do that any day. Just getting married. Any day." That's when I realized that to my family, my wedding wasn't a milestone worth protecting. It was just an inconvenience that could be moved around to accommodate more important things, like my brother's vacation desires. "You know what, Marcus? You're right. I can get married any day. And I'm going to get married on the day we planned, with or without you. Don't be like that, Madeline. Family is supposed to stick together. Funny how that works, I said. When you want something, family is supposed to stick together. But when I need something, I'm being melodramatic. I hung up before he could respond. That evening, David and I sat down and made a final decision. We were not postponing our wedding. If my parents chose a vacation over my wedding day, that was their choice to live with. But we weren't going to reward that choice by rearranging our entire lives around it. The week before the wedding was surreal. I kept expecting them to call and say they'd changed their minds, that they'd realized how horrible they were being and canceled their trip. But the call never came. 3 days before the wedding, I got a text from Mom. Have a wonderful day, sweetheart. We'll be thinking of you from Paris. Take lots of pictures. As if they were missing a casual dinner party instead of their daughter's wedding. David's parents were incredible during this time. His mother, Carol, stepped in to help with last-minute details that my mom should have been handling. His father, Jim, offered to walk me down the aisle if I wanted, though I decided I'd rather walk alone. They were furious on my behalf, but they channeled that anger into making sure our day was as perfect as possible. My best friend Sarah, who was my maid of honor, was less diplomatic. I want to post their absence on social media and tag them, she said while we were getting our nails done the day before the wedding. Let everyone know exactly what kind of parents skip their daughter's wedding for a vacation. Don't, I said. I don't want to sink to their level. But I was planning something else entirely. Our wedding day dawned absolutely perfect. Clear skies, 72 degrees, a gentle breeze that made my veil flutter like something out of a fairy tale. As I got ready in the bridal suite, surrounded by my bridesmaids and David's family, I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me. Yes, my parents weren't there. Yes, it hurt more than I could have imagined. But everyone who was there truly wanted to be there. They weren't there out of obligation or guilt or family pressure. They were there because they loved David and me and wanted to celebrate our marriage. The ceremony was absolutely beautiful. I walked down the aisle alone, my head held high, and when I saw David waiting for me at the altar with tears in his eyes, I knew I'd made the right choice. His brother stood as his best man, and when the officiant asked who was giving me away, David's father stood up and said, "Her family isn't able to be here today, but all of us who love her are honored to support this marriage." There wasn't a dry eye in the house. The reception was everything we'd dreamed of. Our photographer, a colleague of mine who'd offered to do our wedding as a gift, captured every moment perfectly. The dancing, the laughter, the heartfelt toasts from friends who talked about how perfect David and I were together, how they'd never seen two people more meant for each other. Not once during the entire day did anyone ask where my parents were. Our friends knew the situation, and David's family had clearly briefed their relatives. Everyone just focused on celebrating our love and our future together. But here's where I made my move. As a wedding photographer myself, I knew the power of a perfect shot. And our photographer had captured some absolutely stunning images. The golden hour photos were ethereal. The ceremony shots were emotional and beautiful. The reception pictures showed pure joy and celebration. That night, while David and I were in our honeymoon suite, I carefully selected the 12 most gorgeous photos from our wedding day. Pictures that showed how magical and perfect everything had been. Pictures that radiated happiness and love and celebration. I posted them to Instagram, Facebook, and even LinkedIn, with a simple caption, "Yesterday I married the love of my life surrounded by the people who matter most. Feeling grateful for everyone who made this day absolutely perfect. #blessed, #wedding day, #family, #love. I didn't mention my parents' absence. I didn't make any passive-aggressive comments about who wasn't there. I just shared the beauty and joy of our day, and let the pictures tell the story. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments gushing about how beautiful everything looked, how happy David and I appeared, how magical the whole event seemed. And then, the question started coming. Where are your parents in these photos? Did your mom and dad miss the wedding? I don't see your family in any of these pictures? I didn't respond to these comments. I just let them sit there, visible to everyone who looked at the post. David and I left for our honeymoon in Italy the next morning. We spent a week touring vineyards, eating incredible food, and basically ignoring our phones except to post occasional photos of pasta and sunsets. When we got back, I had 47 missed calls from various family members, and my phone was full of text messages. The first few were from my parents, sent from various European cities. "The wedding photos look beautiful, honey. Glad you had such a nice day. Your dress was gorgeous. Sorry we missed it, but it looks like everything went perfectly. Hope you're having fun on your honeymoon?" But then, as the week went on and more people saw the photos and started asking questions, the tone changed. "Madeline, people are asking us why we weren't at your wedding. This is embarrassing. Your aunt called and wanted to know if there was some kind of family emergency that kept us away. What are we supposed to tell people? Some of our neighbors saw your photos and asked if we were sick or something. This is getting out of hand. And finally, we need to talk as soon as you get back. This has gone too far." I also had messages from extended family members, family friends, and even some of my parents' co-workers who'd seen the photos and were confused about their absence. "Honey, I saw your beautiful wedding photos. Where were your mom and dad? I hope everything's okay. Madeline, your wedding looked absolutely magical. I asked your mother about it at the grocery store, but she seemed uncomfortable talking about it. Is there some reason she and your dad weren't there? Sweetheart, congratulations on your marriage. Your father and I were surprised to hear Richard and Eleanor missed it for a vacation. That seems so unlike them. The pictures had done exactly what I'd hoped they would do. They'd shown everyone what a beautiful, joyful celebration we'd had. And they'd made my parents' absence glaringly obvious without me having to say a single negative word about them. When David and I got home from our honeymoon, tanned and relaxed and blissfully happy, we found my parents waiting in our apartment parking lot. "We need to talk," Dad said the moment I got out of the car. "Hello to you too," I replied. "How was Europe?" "Don't be sarcastic, Madeline. You know why we're here." "Actually, I don't. You made your choice to go on vacation instead of coming to my wedding. I made my choice to have the wedding anyway, and share photos of our beautiful day with friends and family. I'm not sure what there is to discuss." Mom stepped forward, and I could see she'd been crying. "Honey, people are asking us questions we don't know how to answer. They want to know why we missed your wedding, and we don't know what to tell them." "You could tell them the truth," I suggested. "That you chose to go on a European vacation with Marcus instead." "You're making us look like terrible parents," Dad said, his voice rising. "I'm not making you look like anything. I posted pictures of my wedding day. If those pictures make you look bad, maybe you should think about why that is. You deliberately posted those photos to embarrass us," Mom accused. "I posted photos of the happiest day of my life to share with people who care about me. If your absence from those photos embarrasses you, that's not my problem." David, who'd been quietly unloading our luggage, finally spoke up. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter, with all due respect, you missed your daughter's wedding for a vacation. Did you really expect people not to notice? This is between us and Madeline," Dad snapped. "This doesn't concern you." "Actually, it concerns me quite a bit," David replied calmly. "I'm her husband now. When you hurt her, you hurt me too." I felt a surge of love for this man who was willing to stand up to my parents when I was too emotionally exhausted to keep fighting. "Look," I said, "I'm not going to apologize for sharing photos of my wedding day. I'm not going to apologize for having a beautiful celebration with people who wanted to be there. And I'm not going to lie to cover up the choices you made." "So what are we supposed to tell people?" Mom asked, tears streaming down her face. "Whatever you want. Tell them you had a wonderful time in Europe. Tell them Marcus's vacation was more important than my wedding. Tell them you thought I'd reschedule my entire wedding to accommodate your travel plans. Tell them whatever makes you feel better." "Madeline, please," Dad said, and for the first time his voice cracked a little. "We never meant for things to go this far. We just thought, you thought I'd roll over and do whatever you wanted, like I always have. You thought you could manipulate me into changing my wedding date, and when that didn't work, you thought you could just skip it and face no consequences. We're your parents," Mom sobbed. "We love you." "Parents who love their children don't miss their weddings for vacations," I said quietly. "Parents who love their children don't ask them to reschedule the most important day of their lives to accommodate a trip to Europe." We stood there in the parking lot for a few more minutes, but there wasn't really anything left to say. They'd made their choice, and now they were living with the consequences of that choice. Over the next few months, the fallout continued. My parents' friends, our extended family, even their neighbors gradually learned the truth about why they'd missed my wedding. Most people were shocked, some were judgmental, a few tried to stay neutral, but it was hard to see their choice as anything other than cruel and selfish. Marcus and Jenny's marriage started having problems too. Apparently, the European trip hadn't been as romantic as they'd hoped, and Jenny was horrified when she learned that she'd been complicit in making my parents miss my wedding. She'd assumed my parents had told me about the conflict, and that I'd been okay with it. My relationship with my parents remained strained. They kept trying to find ways to make it up to me, sending expensive gifts, planning elaborate family dinners that I didn't attend, even offering to throw David and me a belated reception. But they never seemed to understand that the issue wasn't just that they'd missed my wedding. The issue was that they'd chosen to miss it. They'd decided that my brother's wants were more important than my needs, and that my wedding day was just another event that could be rescheduled for their convenience. David and I built a beautiful life together. We bought a house with a big backyard where we host barbecues for our friends. We traveled together, exploring new cities and taking photos of each other in front of famous landmarks. We're talking about starting a family. And when we do, those children will grow up knowing that their parents chose each other every single day. I still work as a wedding photographer, and I've become even more passionate about capturing the joy and love that families share on these important days. When I see parents crying happy tears as their children get married, when I watch fathers dance with their daughters and mothers help bustle wedding dresses, I feel a little pang of sadness for what I missed. But I also feel proud of the choice I made. I could have postponed my wedding and taught my family that my boundaries were negotiable. Instead, I had the wedding I wanted, surrounded by people who truly wanted to celebrate with us, and I shared that joy publicly without apology. Sometimes people ask me if I regret not trying harder to work things out with my parents, if I wish I'd been more flexible, more understanding. But here's what I've learned. You can't force people to prioritize you, and you shouldn't have to beg the people who claim to love you to show up for the moments that matter most. My wedding day was absolutely perfect, not because everything went according to plan, but because everyone who was there chose to be there. Everyone who celebrated with us that day did so out of love, not obligation. And every time I look at our wedding photos, I'm reminded that I'm surrounded by people who know how to show up when it counts. I don't need to beg for love from people who see my most important moments as inconveniences to be worked around. I have a husband who would move mountains to be there for me, friends who dropped everything to make sure my wedding day was beautiful, and in-laws who embraced me as their own daughter from day one. That's not just enough, it's everything.